Hi everyone, Savannah here, and if you love the summer I turned pretty, this sketch is for you. We're drawing all of Belly's favorites, from her love of Sour Patch gummies to a cousin's beach sweatshirt, all the way to that iconic infinity necklace. Everything you need to follow along is down below in that description. That includes free brushes, the color palette that I used in this video, as well as an outline for you to draw along with. Let's go ahead and jump right in. The first thing we're doing is changing that background, so click layers, click background color, and in the color palette section we're going to grab that dark magenta color for the background. Then we're going to go ahead and create a new layer, bring that layer below the outline layer that I have provided for you, and we're going to start blocking in some of the coloring here. So we're going to start with the sweatshirt here on the right. I'm grabbing this light creamy color from the color palette, and I'm going to just outline and fill in the shape of the sweatshirt. We will add details, we'll add the lettering as well as we continue on, but for now we're just blocking in the color. You'll also notice that I turned the opacity down on the outline layer just so that I can see the color that I'm putting down a little bit better. I do turn it off as I'm adding in the color. So right now I turned the outline layer off while I fill in the color because that helps me see the outline a little bit better of what I added with the color that we're using, and I can kind of tweak it as I go here. Once you have the outline and everything filled in, then we do alpha lock and add details. So you really want to make sure that the lines for the object you're coloring are how you want those lines to be. And I am using the circle brush for filling in and doing the outlines. You could use the square brush if you want to. I just like using the rounded brush for things that are more round. Square brush, I like doing it more when I'm looking for something a little bit more blocky. But for now, I'm just using that circle brush to fill in a lot of the shapes here that we have in the scene. Now let's go ahead and create a new layer, and we're going to fill in with this pink color the heart box here to the left. So this is going to be a box full of Sour Patch Kids, which is one of Belly's favorite things that she eats. And so we're going to just fill this shape, this heart shape in with this pink color, still using that circle brush here for outlining the shape here. And then once you have those edges traced, like I mentioned earlier, you can turn that outline layer off as you're starting to fill this in so that you can make sure that those shapes are looking accurate to how you want them to look. And now with that, we're going to do a new layer, bring it below the sweatshirt and this heart layer. We want this on the bottom. And we're going to grab a gray color for this. This is going to be the letter that Conrad writes Belly while she's in Paris. And we're just going to trace and fill it in with this gray color. For the details on this one, I just kept it pretty simple. I just did little scribbles. I didn't write actual words on this letter because you get the gist. It's a letter. I did write love C, so for Conrad. But if you want to write in actual words, you can definitely do that. I just did it as scribbles. You get the idea that it's supposed to be a letter. And now on a new layer above the heart, we're going to work on the infinity necklace. So I'm going to use a dark gray for this. I'm going to just trace and fill in around the infinity part here of the necklace. And then I just kind of do a little bit of circle scribbles. You'll see what I mean here in a second for the chain. You could do actual chain, but that could be a little bit time consuming. So I did a little bit of scribbles that kind of have a circular edge to them so that you can get the gist that it is a necklace or a chain necklace. and I did end up making the infinity a little bit thicker than I think the outline is. That's just my personal preference. You can keep it thin. It's also a little bit bigger than what's actually in the show. In the show, the infinity necklace is a little bit smaller around her neck. I made the infinity pretty big here in this image. So if you want to be a little bit more accurate, you can make it a little bit smaller, but I wanted to keep it big because I want it to be easily noticeable in this image with all these other objects. Now go ahead and alpha log all of these objects here. We will add in details and we will add those Sour Patch Kids here in a second, but let's go ahead and start with the sweatshirt. I'm going to add in the lettering, so I'm going to do that on a new layer. So create a new layer right above the sweatshirt. You can set it to clipping mask if you want to. Not a necessary thing because it's still within the shape of that sweatshirt. But I'm going to grab this dark blue color. I'm going to use the the circle brush. I'm going to start filling in the shape of the cousins section here, and then I'll make the brush size a little bit smaller and bright over the beach part, and then also tweak up the edge of the cousin section because I'm using a slightly bigger brush. The edges aren't as crisp as I would like, so I'll go through with a smaller brush size there. And you can tweak the wording here. You don't have to say Cousins Beach if you don't want to. You can say Team Jerry. You could do Team Conrad. Although if you do switch it to Team Jerry, you might want to swap out Sour Patch Kids for Swedish Fish and maybe not include the infinity necklace or the letters. But if you're sticking to this, you can say Cousins Beach, or again, you could say Team Conrad if you want to for the sweatshirt, whatever you want to do for that sweatshirt. But I'm going to stick with Cousins, and I'm going to start filling in and adding in all the text here. And you don't have to touch up the edges here if you don't want to. If that's the look you're going for, I just want it a little bit more clean. It's still a little on the messier side, and I kind of like that look, so I'm going to keep it a little messy. Just with the brushes, they have a little bit of texture to them, so it's not going to be a crisp line. There are many great brushes already included in Procreate they can use if you want more of a crisp line. But I like the kind of sketchy look as if it's kind of a paintbrush, and so I'm not going to clean it up too much. I still want a little bit of that paintbrush look to come through, so I'm just doing a little bit of touch-ups here and there. Now I am happy with the lettering, so I'm going to go onto the actual sweatshirt layer, and we're going to add in just some shadows and some details. So we're going to do a little bit of a darker color. So using that base color we used for the sweatshirt, go to that disc option when you're looking at colors and just grab a slightly darker color, that circle blend brush, and we're going to just add in some coloring here, some shadows here. So just kind of imagine a sweatshirt where there's folds or kind of it's not perfectly flat. You're going to have some pockets where there are a little bit of shadows here and there. So I'm just kind of playing with it. I'm not going off of any outline here for this. I'm just freehanding it. But I did add at the bottom of that sweatshirt a little area where you would add in some shadows because that's where the fold is. And then at the top, so in the collar area, we're going to add some shadows in the neck. So inside the shirt here, we're adding some shadow. So that's what I'm doing here. And then we're going to add some lines. So if you have worn sweatshirts, you know that around the neck, it has kind of like those vertical folds. We're going to add those in with this slightly darker color. And I'll use that circle blend brush for that just to make it a little bit of a softer blend. And I am going in pretty dark here around the edge, but I'm going to lighten it up. So I'm grabbing a color that was kind of blended. So this, all of this I was adding in, I use that circle blend brush. So I'm going to grab a color that was a little bit of that in between blended color. And I'm going to blend out the edge a little bit more because I don't want it to be so dark around this section. It's not like it sticks out that far. There's just going to be a little bit of a shadow. So I'm going to blend it out a little bit more around that color area. And then I am going to use that same color that I grabbed, so that in-between color, and I'm just going to very lightly go over the other areas that we added shadows here, just to blend it out a little bit more, to soften up those colors a little bit more. And I'm just defining this inside area here where that the back side of that color is going to be, just to give it a little bit more of distinction there. And then I'm going to start adding in, like I mentioned, those vertical kind of folds around the collar here. So again, using that circle blend brush, I'm just very lightly adding these vertical lines here uh, across this neck area. And then I'm going to grab this dark color around the edge here and just kind of trim a little bit of the edging. So those vertical lines I added, I went outside of my shape there. And so it just brought a lighter color into that shadow area, which I didn't want. So I'm just going to touch this up real quick before we work on the inner part here. And then with those inside lines, we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to add in the vertical lines here. If you need to go a little bit darker, if you didn't blend this or lighten this up on the inside part, you can go a little bit dark with that brush color, but I'm just going to go through and add those same way that we did around the front at the vertical lines here for that inside of that sweatshirt. And with that, we are done with our sweatshirt. So we're going to move on to the heart box. So this is just going to be a box that has candies inside of it. I'm going to add a new layer above it. That's where we're going to add the Sour Patch Kid candies. And we're going to set that to Clippy Mess. So I don't want the Sour Patch candy to go outside of the shape of the heart. And so that's why I'm setting that to Clippy Mask. I'm going to use the circle brush for this. And I'm going to outline the shape of some of the Sour Patch Kids with various colors. So we have red, yellow, green, blue, and orange. You can play around with what colors you want to place where. I'm just going to do the outlines for a few of the different colors just so I can see visually if which colors I want to add more of or where I want to add them, and then I'll fill them in with their colors once I have the placement. Now I'm happy with where the colors are within this scene, and we will add more Sour Patch Kids, so it's not going to just be this few. But we're going to go ahead and fill in the color here, and then I will show you the technique that I use to add that coating, that sour sugar coating that the Sour Patch Kids have. It's super easy. It's in one of my brushes that I have included in the brush set. That's for free, and so we'll just do that texture on top of the Sour Patch Kids, and then we'll duplicate and add in more of these Sour Patch Kids so that it looks like a more full bucket full of these candies. So now that we have these filled in, let me show you how we do the Sour Patch coating. So we're actually going to use my Untitled brush. I still have not named that one, so it's still set to Untitled. Set the brush size to about 2%. You can go bigger or smaller if you want. And I'm grabbing a light whitish color, and I'm just tapping on the surface of these Sour Patch Kids. Probably went a little small on the brush. If you want to go a little bit bigger, you can, but that's all you're doing. It's just tapping that brush against the surface of the Sour Patch Kids, and it creates that kind of coating on top of them. So super easy. You can get these done, nothing flat, and then we will duplicate a bunch of these to make this bucket full of candies look much more full. And I will say it is hard to see the color against the yellow. So if you need to zoom in, or if you want to make the yellow a little bit darker so you can see it, definitely feel free to do that. But just know that it's going to be hard to see the white against the yellow because they're very close in color. And now that we have these done, let's go ahead and duplicate that layer. So go to layers, swipe left on the layer, click duplicate, and then you can move that layer around. I'm actually going to move each of these individually around because there's a lot of overlap. You have green on green, blue on blue, orange on orange, and you can't distinguish them. So go into your selection tool, it's that S, click into freehand, and then you can click the pointer or click freehand, draw around the shape you want to move, and then you click the pointer and you can move it around there. That's what I'm going to do here, just to move them around, move some of the shapes so that we don't have those colors overlapping. I don't want them to be overlapping, even though, you know, in the real world, there's going to be a lot of overlap. I want them to be unique and I want you to see every color. So I'm going to move these around. Feel free to do the same, and then we'll come back and we'll move on to the next step. And I will say, as you're moving this around, just make sure you're on the right layer. I was moving around the Sour Patch Kids on the bottom layer, which is fine, but I was grabbing wrong shapes or erasing shapes on accident. So it might be better to turn off the layer that you're not moving the shapes around. Or as I'll do here, I turn the opacity layer down, or the opacity down on the layer that I'm not moving shapes around, so that I can still see the shapes that I am moving around, how they compare to those other layers. So whatever you need to do to move these objects around, feel free to do so. You can even add more, you could do less. I'll add more because I want, again, to look pretty full, and I'll show you here in a second what I do there. But I'm just going to keep moving these around to make it look a little bit more full and to have that color kind of spread out a little bit better. And then, like I mentioned, we'll move on to next steps. I'll show you how to duplicate this again just to make it look more full, and then we'll go on to the next step. And now I have all of them placed where I want them to be placed. So I'm actually going to merge all of these layers together. So we're going to have one layer of Sour Patch Kids. I'm going to duplicate that layer, flip it horizontally. So you just click the pointer and click flip horizontally down below, and then move it into place. That's going to make it look like we have a lot more Sour Patch Kids than we do, but easiest way to do that so you're not having to do each individual one. So that's what we're going to do for the Sour Patch Kids. Now on the heart layer that we have, grab that purple color that we use for the background, the circle blend brush, and we're going to fill in the inner part of the box here because it is a box, so we want it to look like there's some depth there. So I'm going to make it this dark purple color, just very lightly add in some of that color. I'm not pressing too hard because I am using that circle blend brush. It has a little bit of that pink still pulling through, which is what I want. If you want it to be more contrasted and more, um, not have that peak coming through, then you can use that circle brush, but I want a little bit of that pink popping through still. So I'm using the blend brush. I'm going to trace the outline or the inner outline here of the heart box, and then I'm going to move on. We have the letter still to do and also the infinity necklace to do. Now let's move on to the infinity necklace. This one we'll spend a little bit on because it is a silver necklace. There's going to be reflective properties to it, and I'll show you what I do. It's going to be a lot of building up colors. I'm going to start with this black color, this dark black color, and I'm going to go around the inner part here, just adding in some black, again, to make it look like there's that reflective property. So again, we're going to be building up a lot of colors. I'm starting with black. I'm just kind of going around the shape of the infinity necklace, and then we'll add in some other colors here and just keep building it up. I'm also going to take that dark black color up the chain as well, just kind of putting it on the right side. I'm going to have more of the reflection be on the left. You can have it whichever direction you want. I don't really have like a light source in this image per se, but I'm just going to have more of that reflective property on the left side of the image here. Then I'm going to grab this lighter gray color and I'm going to go around the edges and lighten it up. Again, it's just going to be a lot of building up on this necklace to make it look like it's reflective, to make it look like there's that shininess to it. So I'm just going on, for the chain, I'm just going on the left side. Like I mentioned, I put the darker on the right. So I'm going to do lighter on the opposite side. And then I just very lightly kind of added in some of this lighter white on top. Then I'm also going to grab blue. I want to have a little bit of a blue reflection to or shine to it. So we're just going to keep building up. I'm going to pull in some red as well, which seems weird, but there's a little bit of that reflective because it's a silver necklace. You're going to have reflective from the other things in the image. I'm going to grab pink, and I'm just adding placements here and there around this infinity necklace. Now make sure you follow the shape of the infinity necklace with the line, so you don't see me going up and down or left to right. I'm following the shape of that infinity necklace, and I'm just going to keep adding these colors up and make it look a little bit more shiny, like it's a silver necklace. And I did lose a little bit of that black, so I'm going to pull that back in here a little bit. And then same thing with that lighter grayish white color. I lost a little bit of that, so I'm just going to add in some more into this necklace here. And now there's that silver necklace complete. Let's move on to the letter. Again, I mentioned earlier that I didn't write specific words or anything like that. I just did scribbles. So feel free to do scribbles. It's hard for you to see because my hand's a little bit more on top. Apologize for that, but I'm just literally drawing these little scribble lines to make it look like someone had actually written a letter. And then I'm going to sign it with a heart and a C, because that's essentially what those letters turned into towards the end. He signed it Love Conrad, so we're going to do a heart with C for Conrad. And after this, I'm going to do something that a lot of digital artists probably don't want to do. I'm going to merge all these layers down because I'm going to create a shadow layer underneath. You don't have to merge them if you don't want to, if that's too scary for you, because once you merge, all these details are on the same layer. So if you need to tweak anything, it's going to be much harder. But I'm going to duplicate the layer that I merged. On the bottom of those layers, I'm going to grab a dark purple color. So I grabbed the same color as the background, went a little bit darker, set that layer to alpha lock, and then set fill layer. I'm doing that for the shadow here in the background. Again, you don't have to merge all of them. You can duplicate all the layers and merge them that way, but I'm just gonna merge it here. Then I'm gonna do a Gaussian blur on it. Just make sure when you do the Gaussian blur, you don't have that layer set to alpha lock because it's not gonna do anything. And with that, we have Belly's favorites done. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe and comment. Are you Team Conrad or Team Jeremiah? I'd love to hear what side you're on. See you in the next video.